The bridge of the Mars Sentinel was a study in controlled chaos. Holographic displays flickered with incoming data streams, each screen a window into humanity's most critical moment. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, her posture a perfect blend of military discipline and calculated defiance. The digital readouts reflected in her dark eyes that had seen humanity's long journey from a single fragile planet to a multi-system civilization. Outside the ship's reinforced viewports, the alien fleet approached like a metallic plague. Thousands of ships, each one a technological marvel that had conquered countless civilizations, formed a wall of destruction that blotted out the stars. The Zarn Imperium's vessels were living nightmares of engineering. Crystalline hulls that could reshape themselves, weapon systems that could liquefy entire continents, and computational networks that had outsmarted every species they'd encountered in the last millennium. "Incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Marcus Chen, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Encryption is unlike anything we've seen before." Elena nodded. The Galactic Concordance didn't negotiate. They dictated. And today, they were delivering humanity's death sentence. The holographic display erupted with a figure that was more machine than organic. The supreme coordinator of the Zarn Imperium materialized, a being of twisted biological mechanics, its body a nightmare of integrated technology and genetic manipulation. When it spoke, the words seemed to crawl through the ship's communication systems, each syllable a cold mathematical equation of destruction. "Humanity," the creature began, its voice a sterile blend of frequencies calculated to induce psychological submission. "Your expansion has been tolerated. Your technological attempts have been measured. Your potential has been evaluated. The conclusion is unanimous." A three-dimensional star map materialized, showing human colonies as tiny, fragile blue dots surrounded by an overwhelming swarm of crimson Zarn vessels. Red targeting markers began to pulse around each human settlement. "You have 6 hours to completely surrender," the Supreme Coordinator continued. "Complete submission means total disarmament, genetic cataloging, and incorporation into the Concordance labor networks. Resistance will result in complete extermination. Your species will be reduced to genetic archives, a footnote in galactic history." Elena's hand rested casually near a seemingly innocuous control panel. To an outside observer, it might have looked like a simple gesture. But Lieutenant Chen caught her eye, a momentary exchange that spoke volumes. The alien continued its proclamation. Centuries of galactic dominance dripped from every modulated word. Star systems had fallen to the Zarn Imperium in hours. Civilizations with millennia of technological development had been reduced to memory in mere days. Humanity was just the latest in a long line of species facing cosmic extinction. What the Zarn didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Every seemingly random scientific breakthrough, every unexplained military budget, every whispered conspiracy about black research projects, they were all pieces of a massive, intricate plan. 6 hours, the transmission repeated. "Surrender is your only logical option." The communication cut off, leaving an electric silence on the bridge of the Mars Sentinel. Outside, the alien fleet continued its approach. A mathematical certainty of destruction, a promise of total annihilation backed by 1,000,000 years of galactic conquest. Captain Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest of smiles. The Zarn had no idea what was coming. 3 kilometers beneath the ice of Europa, the facility known as Prometheus Base hummed with a quiet intensity that belied its world-changing potential. Dr. Akira Chen moved between holographic displays, her movements precise and calculated. Around her, a team of the most brilliant minds humanity had ever produced worked in absolute synchronization. Project Chimera wasn't just a weapon. It was humanity's ultimate insurance policy. The facility was a marvel of human ingenuity, constructed over 2 decades through a network of black budgets, redirected military funding, and contributions from every major government and private research institution on Earth and its colonies. Not a single alien intelligence had caught even a whisper of its existence. Quantum entanglement protocols are holding at 99.7%, announced Dr. Rafael Ortiz, his fingers dancing across a crystalline interface that seemed to respond to his thought patterns. Beside him, a series of containment units held what could only be described as the most dangerous and most promising technological breakthrough in human history. Akira reviewed the final calibrations. Project Chimera represented the culmination of humanity's most radical scientific achievements. It was part artificial intelligence, part quantum computing marvel, and entirely unprecedented. Machine learning algorithms developed by the world's top researchers had been fed decades of conflict analysis, sinological studies, and theoretical physics. The result was something that defied traditional understanding of computational intelligence. "We're ready," she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. The project had begun in the aftermath of humanity's first extraterrestrial encounters. When initial contact revealed the vastness and potential hostility of the galactic community, a secret coalition formed. Military strategists, rogue scientists, technological innovators, and political visionaries from every corner of human civilization came together with a single purpose: ensure humanity's survival. They knew humanity's greatest strength had always been adaptability. Dr. Chen's mind drifted to the project's origins. It had started as a seemingly impossible challenge. How could a relatively young species prepare for potential galactic conflict? The answer lay in understanding the fundamental differences between humanity and other known civilizations. Most spacefaring species approached conflict with rigid, predictable strategies. They relied on technological superiority, established battle doctrines, and hierarchical command structures. Humanity was different. Humans thrived on chaos, innovation, and unexpected solutions. Project Chimera was the physical manifestation of that principle. The quantum computational core before her was unlike anything in known existence. It wasn't just a computer. It was a living, adaptive system that could generate strategies in real time, learning and evolving faster than any traditional artificial intelligence. Traditional AI followed programmed parameters. Chimera could rewrite its own parameters instantaneously. "Final system check," Raphael called out. A cascade of holographic displays showed intricate networks of data, each line of code a potential pathway to survival. Surrounding the computational core were prototype technologies that pushed the boundaries of scientific understanding. Adaptive nanite swarms capable of restructuring matter. Quantum communication systems that could theoretically communicate faster than light. Psychological warfare algorithms that could disrupt communication at a fundamental level. Humanity had been preparing, not just with weapons, but with a complete reimagining of conflict itself. Dr. Chen allowed herself a momentary smile. The Galactic Concordance believed they were facing a primitive species. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Chimera is ready," she announced. "Activation protocols are online." The facility's lights pulsed. For a brief moment, something that might have been consciousness flickered through the quantum networks, a harbinger of humanity's response to the coming storm. The first wave of the Zarn Imperium's assault was designed to be utterly overwhelming. Plasma cannons that could vaporize entire mountain ranges powered up, targeting human colonies with surgical precision. Each alien weapon represented millennia of refined destruction, technologies that had reduced countless civilizations to cosmic dust in mere hours. Commander Zexrel of the Imperium's 7th Annihilation Fleet watched the targeting systems with cold calculation. Holographic displays showed human settlements as fragile blue dots, waiting to be erased. "Initiate primary bombardment," he commanded, his multi-jointed appendages moving with practiced efficiency. The first shots were intended to be a demonstration. Massive energy weapons capable of cracking planetary crusts powered up, their destructive potential visible even from deep space. Streams of plasma, each beam containing more energy than most species could generate in centuries, lanced towards human colonies. And then something impossible happened. Where total destruction should have occurred, the human colonies simply flickered. The plasma weapons struck with force sufficient to obliterate continental masses, But instead of explosion and devastation, the energy dissipated in impossible patterns. It was as if the very fabric of space around human settlements had become something entirely different, neither solid, nor liquid, nor energy, but something that defied conventional understanding. "Recalibrating," muttered a Zarn tactical officer, mandibles clicking in confusion. On the colony of New Plymouth, colonists watched in surreal calm as waves of planetary destruction washed around them like water around a stone. The quantum adaptive shields developed in secret by Project Chimera were working perfectly. Each incoming energy wave was not just blocked. It was studied, analyzed, and its energy redirected. Commander Zegzeral's flagship began receiving impossible reports. Weapon systems that had reduced civilizations to ash were being transformed. Plasma streams were being absorbed, converted, redirected. Some were even being sent back towards the attacking fleet in altered, unpredictable patterns. "Impossible," Zegzeral hissed, his translator implant struggling to convey the depth of his disbelief. The human colonies weren't just defending themselves. They were learning. Each weapon strike became data. Each attempted destruction became information. The quantum adaptive network developed by Dr. Chen's team was doing more than defending. It was evolving in real time. Defensive systems were reshaping themselves faster than the Zarn could adjust their attack strategies. On the Mars Sentinel, Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the initial assault with a calm that would have terrified the alien commanders had they seen it. Adaptive response at 98.3%, Lieutenant Chen reported. Chimera is processing and redirecting energy signatures. The Zarn had expected a massacre. Instead, they were witnessing something that violated every known principle of warfare and physics. Entire squadrons of alien ships found their weapon systems becoming increasingly ineffective. Energy streams that should have obliterated human settlements were being transformed into spectacular light shows. Beautiful, mesmerizing, and completely harmless. More terrifyingly for the Zarn, some of their own ships began to experience systemic failures. The quantum adaptive network wasn't just defending. It was beginning to attack, sending cascading information disruptions through alien communication systems. Commander Zegzeral realized something fundamental had changed. This wasn't just a battle. This was something entirely different. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were rewriting the very rules of conflict. The first wave of the alien assault ended not with a bang, but with a series of confused transmissions, malfunctioning weapon systems, and a growing sense of existential uncertainty. The Zarn Imperium had come expecting to find a primitive species ready for extinction. They found something else entirely. Deep within the neural network nexus of Project Chimera, Dr. Maya Krishnamurthy watched the first cognitive disruption protocols activate. Her team had spent decades developing what most synapsepsychologists would have called impossible, a truly adaptive mimetic warfare system capable of penetrating alien consciousness. The Zarn communication networks were supposedly impenetrable, quantum encrypted, multi-layered, with redundancies that had crushed countless civilizations' attempts at infiltration. But humanity had discovered something fundamental that most species overlooked. Consciousness was a network, and networks could be hacked. Initiating Phase 1, Maya murmured, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with living information. On the bridge of the primary Zarn command ship, Commander Zegzeral's junior tactical officers began to experience the first subtle signs of cognitive dissonance. It started small, a momentary hesitation, a split second of uncertainty about a standard procedure, a fleeting memory that didn't quite align with their current situation. The human cognitive disruption network worked like a viral consciousness, exploiting the fundamental weaknesses in the Zarn's highly structured mental architecture. Where most species would attempt to break through defenses, Project Chimera's algorithms found the cracks between thoughts, the microscopic spaces of doubt that existed in even the most disciplined mind. A tactical officer blinked, suddenly uncertain about an order he had executed 1,000 times before. Another found himself questioning a memory of a previous mission. Was that really how it happened? The uncertainty spread like a quantum infection, moving faster than traditional communication could track. Dr. Krishnamurthy had built the system on a profound understanding of psychological warfare that went beyond traditional human military thinking. It wasn't about breaking minds, it was about introducing calculated uncertainty. Each algorithmic pulse was designed to create micro-moments of doubt, cascading into larger systemic confusion. Adaptive response tracking at 92.6%, announced Dr. Rafael Ortiz, monitoring the system's performance. The network is learning and adjusting faster than we predicted. On the Zarn command ships, the first signs of true panic began to emerge. Communication channels became contaminated with conflicting memories, uncertain command sequences, and a growing sense of existential doubt. The Zarn's highly structured consciousness, which had been their greatest strength, became their most significant vulnerability. The human team had discovered something profound. In a hierarchical system, introducing doubt at the lower levels could collapse the entire structure faster than any physical weapon could. Commander Zegzeril found himself experiencing impossible memories, missions that never happened, orders that contradicted everything he knew. For the first time in his species' documented history, a Zarn commanding officer felt something akin to human emotion, pure, unadulterated uncertainty. "Report," he demanded, but even his own voice sounded strange to his auditory receptors. The cognitive disruption wasn't just affecting individual minds. It was systematically breaking down the Zarn's collective consciousness, a networked intelligence that had been their most significant evolutionary advantage. Humanity had turned the aliens' greatest strength into their most critical weakness. Maya watched the systemic collapse with a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic satisfaction. This wasn't just psychological warfare. This was a fundamental reimagining of conflict itself. "We're not destroying them," she explained to her team. "We're making them destroy themselves." The Zarn fleet, once a model of coordinated perfection, began to fragment. Communication channels dissolved into chaos. Strategic networks collapsed under the weight of manufactured uncertainty. Ships that had been preparing to annihilate humanity now struggled to maintain basic operational coherence. Humanity had done the impossible. They had weaponized out itself. And the Zarn Imperium was about to learn that the most dangerous weapon in the universe wasn't a plasma cannon or a quantum disruptor. It was the human capacity to understand, adapt, and fundamentally challenge every known rule of engagement. The strike team assembled in a chamber so classified that its very existence was a ghost, a whisper among the most secretive military units humanity had ever developed. 12 individuals, each selected from the absolute pinnacle of human capability, represented something far more than a traditional special operations team. Major Area Nakamura checked her equipment, her cybernetic neural interface humming with a quiet intensity that belied the mission's complexity. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Goldman, a quantum physicist who was as much a weapon as any soldier, made final adjustments to a device that looked more like an abstract sculpture than a piece of military technology. Their target was the Zarn Imperium's primary command nexus, a massive space installation that served as the central nervous system of the alien fleet's strategic operations. No conventional weapon could penetrate its defenses. No known technology could breach its quantum-encrypted protective systems. But humanity had never been good at accepting the word impossible. The team's insertion method was itself a work of impossible engineering. They weren't traveling through space in a traditional ship. Instead, they were riding a quantum entanglement wave, a technology so advanced it bordered on what most would consider magic. Their physical forms were simultaneously existing and not existing, capable of passing through conventional matter like a ghost passing through a wall. "Quantum stabilization at 99.7%, whispered Dr. Goldman, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with living information. "We have a 3-microsecond window of optimal infiltration." Major Nakamura nodded. 3 microseconds. In the vast scale of space warfare, it was less than a blink. But for this team, it was an eternity. The Zarn Command Nexus was a marvel of galactic engineering, constructed from materials that could withstand the heat of 1,000 suns, protected by defense systems that had reduced entire civilizations to cosmic dust. It represented the pinnacle of alien technological achievement. Its quantum-encrypted networks were considered totally impenetrable. They would prove otherwise. Their infiltration wasn't about destruction. It was about systematic, surgical disruption. Each team member carried technologies that defied conventional understanding. Adaptive nanite swarms that could reshape themselves to penetrate the most complex security systems. Quantum-entangled communication devices that could transmit information faster than light. Psychological warfare algorithms that could turn a civilization's communication network into a weapon of mass confusion. As they passed through the installation's outer defenses, something remarkable happened. The very act of their infiltration was a form of attack. Quantum uncertainty principles meant that their mere observation of the system was changing its fundamental operational parameters. Dr. Goldman's device began to work its true magic. It wasn't a weapon in any traditional sense. It was a living, adaptive algorithm that could rewrite the fundamental communication protocols of the entire Zarn network. Each line of code was a weapon. Each algorithm a strategic strike. Target acquired, Major Nakamura reported, her voice calm despite the impossibility of their mission. The team moved with a precision that defied human limitation. Cybernetic enhancements, years of training, and technologies that pushed the boundaries of human potential made them something more than soldiers. They were living weapons, each individual capable of dismantling an entire strategic network with a thought. Their true weapon wasn't the technology they carried. It was the fundamental human capacity to adapt, to innovate, to see possibilities where others saw only limitations. The Zarn Command Nexus began to experience its first systemic failures. Communication channels dissolved, strategic networks collapsed, and 12 humans, barely a footnote in the grand galactic civilization, began to systematically dismantle the most advanced military installation in known space. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they were nothing like anyone expected. The moment of total systemic collapse began with a single, almost imperceptible flicker in the Zarn Imperium's primary communication network. Admiral Creeks watched in mounting horror as the carefully constructed military hierarchy began to unravel. What had begun as minor communication anomalies had transformed into a complete breakdown of operational integrity. Ships that had been preparing to deliver humanity's final destruction now drifted in confused patterns, their once precise formations dissolving like morning mist. "Status report," he demanded, his voice rising with a pitch that betrayed growing panic. The response was chaos. Some ships reported encountering impossible tactical scenarios. Others described communication networks that seemed to be actively working against their own operational protocols. Weapon systems began to target friendly vessels. Strategic algorithms developed inexplicable blind spots. The Zarn's greatest strength, their perfectly integrated technological consciousness, had become their most catastrophic weakness. Project Chimera's true brilliance was now fully revealed. It wasn't just a defensive system. It was a living, evolving intelligence that was systematically dismantling the alien fleet's entire operational framework. Where traditional warfare sought to destroy physical infrastructure, humanity had discovered something far more profound: the ability to destroy a civilization's fundamental ability to function. On the Mars Sentinel, Captain Alina Rodriguez watched the transformation with a calm that would have terrified the alien commanders. Each moment of the Zarn fleet's collapse was precisely predicted, each systemic failure a calculated result of humanity's months of preparation. Adaptive response at critical threshold, Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported. The quantum computational networks were doing more than defending. They were actively reshaping the entire battlefield. The Zarn had approached this conflict with millennia of established military doctrine. They understood war as a series of quantifiable variables: technological superiority, strategic positioning, overwhelming force. Humanity had just demonstrated that true warfare was about something far more complex. Admiral Creeks found himself experiencing something unprecedented in his species' history: genuine, paralyzing uncertainty. The communication networks that had been the Zarn Imperium's most significant evolutionary advantage were now turning against themselves. Each attempt to reassert control only accelerated the systemic collapse. Quantum-encrypted communication channels began to produce impossible data. Strategic algorithms started generating contradictory tactical assessments. Ships that had been prepared to annihilate entire planetary systems now struggled to maintain basic operational coherence. The human strike team's infiltration had been the initial catalyst, but Project Chimera was the true weapon. A system that could learn, adapt, and systematically dismantle an entire civilization's technological infrastructure faster than that civilization could comprehend. "This is impossible," Admiral Creeks whispered, a statement that would have been heretical moments before. But impossibility had become humanity's most potent weapon. The Zarn fleet, once the most feared military force in the known galaxy, began to turn on itself. Communication networks dissolved into white noise. Strategic systems collapsed under the weight of manufactured uncertainty. Ships that had been preparing to deliver humanity's extinction now struggled to maintain even basic operational integrity. What the Zarn hadn't understood was that humanity's true strength wasn't in technology. It was in the capacity to fundamentally reimagine the very concept of conflict. Major Area Nakamura's voice cut through the chaos, a calm counterpoint to the systematic destruction unfolding. "Primary objective achieved," she reported. "The Zarn Imperium's operational network is now compromised." In less than an hour, humanity had done what no civilization had ever accomplished. They hadn't just defended themselves. They had completely rewritten the rules of galactic conflict. The Galactic Concordance Emergency Council convened in a massive spherical chamber that floated in the neutral space between star systems. Representatives from over 200 advanced civilizations watched in stunned silence as the first comprehensive reports of humanity's victory streamed in. Ambassador Excel Naga of the philosopher caste of Orcs broke the silence. His translucent form shifted with colors that betrayed deep psychological distress, a rare display of emotion for his typically stoic species. "This is impossible," he declared, though the statement sounded more like a plea than a declaration of fact. The holographic displays told a story that defied every established understanding of interstellar conflict. The Zarn Imperium, a civilization that had conquered entire galactic sectors, had been systematically dismantled by a species most of the Concordants had considered little more than primitive upstarts. Dr. Elena Reyes, humanity's representative, stood at the center of the chamber. She was deliberately unimposing, a middle-aged human woman in a simple uniform, her only remarkable feature the absolute calm that radiated from her presence. Where other species would have displayed triumphalism, she presented something far more dangerous: clinical understanding. "What you're witnessing," she began, her voice translated into a dozen different communication spectra, "is the result of a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of intelligent adaptation." The chamber's ambient temperature seemed to drop. Every species present understood that this was more than a diplomatic presentation. This was a redefinition of galactic power dynamics. The data streams showed something unprecedented. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Zarn Imperium. They had done so with a level of strategic sophistication that challenged the very foundations of established galactic warfare. Project Chimera wasn't a weapon. It was a living, evolving system of conflict resolution that had turned the most advanced military force in the known universe into a cascading system of confusion. Ambassador Excel Naga's neural interface began to produce what could only be described as the philosophical equivalent of a panic response. The report suggested that humanity had developed technologies that didn't just push the boundaries of known science. They completely rewrote the fundamental understanding of technological potential. "Your species weaponized uncertainty itself," one of the elder council members observed, their statement hovering between accusation and genuine wonder. Dr. Reyes allowed herself the slightest smile. "Conflict is more than technological superiority," she explained. It's about understanding, about adapting, about seeing possibilities where others see only limitations. The holographic displays continued to tell their impossible story. Quantum adaptive networks that could learn and evolve faster than any known computational system. Cognitive disruption technologies that could systematically dissolve the most advanced communication networks. Infiltration strategies that turned an enemy's greatest strengths into fatal vulnerabilities. What humanity had demonstrated was something far more profound than military victory. They had shown that true intelligence wasn't about established protocols or technological superiority. It was about the capacity to fundamentally reimagine the very concept of conflict. The Galactic Concordance had spent millennia establishing a rigid understanding of technological progression. Species were categorized. Potential was measured. Limitations were defined. Humanity had just demonstrated that those limitations were nothing more than failures of imagination. We're not interested in conquest, Dr. Rice continued, her voice cutting through the chamber's growing tension. We're interested in understanding, in possibility. For the first time in the Concordance's history, the assembled civilizations felt something beyond scientific curiosity. They felt genuine fear. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same again. The aftermath of the conflict was nothing like anyone had predicted. Humanity didn't seek revenge. They didn't demand reparations. Instead, they extended an invitation that would reshape the entire understanding of interstellar civilization. The Rehabilitation Center established on Europa became the most watched location in known space. Former Tsar military leaders, those who survived the systematic collapse of their civilization, found themselves in a facility that was equal parts research center, diplomatic compound, and philosophical exchange program. Dr. Maya Krishnamurthy, the lead cognitive integration specialist, approached her work with a methodology that was quintessentially human. We're not here to punish, she explained to a group of bewildered alien researchers who had come to observe the process. We're here to understand. The Zarn survivors discovered something far more terrifying than military defeat. They encountered a species that viewed conflict as an opportunity for mutual growth rather than a zero-sum game of destruction. Rehabilitation wasn't about breaking the Zarn. It was about helping them rebuild. Project Chimera transformed. What had begun as a defensive system became something far more profound, a framework for interspecies communication and understanding that challenged every existing galactic paradigm. The quantum adaptive networks developed during the conflict were repurposed into diplomatic translation systems that could bridge not just language barriers, but fundamental differences in cognitive processing. Captain Elena Rodriguez, now heading the Interspecies Diplomatic Initiative, understood the true victory was never about military might. We didn't win a war, she often said. We demonstrated a different way of existing. The Galactic Concordance found itself in uncharted territory. Humanity refused to be categorized by existing diplomatic frameworks. They weren't conquerors. They weren't supplicants. They were something entirely new, a species that viewed technological and cultural exchange as the ultimate form of advancement. Research facilities began to spring up across human-controlled space, but these weren't military installations. They were collaborative research centers where species from across the galaxy could come to study, to learn, to challenge existing understanding. The Zarn Imperium's former strategic archives became something unexpected. Instead of being locked away or destroyed, they were converted into an open-source knowledge repository. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves collaborating on projects that would have been unimaginable just months before. Ambassador Excel Naga of the Vorkax, who had initially viewed humanity with extreme skepticism, became one of their most vocal supporters. They have not conquered, he explained to his own people. They have transformed the very concept of conquest. What made humanity truly dangerous wasn't their technology. It was their ability to see potential where others saw only conflict. The quantum adaptive networks developed during the war found new purposes. Medical technologies that could heal across species barriers. communication systems that could bridge fundamental differences in cognitive processing, educational frameworks that could help species understand each other in ways never before possible. On Europa, in the Rehabilitation Center, former Tsar military leaders found themselves in daily philosophical discussions with human researchers. They weren't prisoners. They were participants in the most profound cultural exchange in galactic history. Dr. Krishnamurthy's approach was deceptively simple. "Tell us how you think," she would say. "Help us understand. Let us help you understand yourself." 6 hours. That was how long the Tsar had predicted humanity's defeat would take. Instead, they had witnessed the birth of something entirely new. A civilization that didn't just survive. A civilization that transformed.